As my guest and I can attest, when you've seen enough litigants in the family court, the experience seems out of place, bizarre, sometimes comical compared with the reality of a family. Families just don't belong in court. Judges and lawyers will not allow you to speak nor explain a situation that may have tangible relevance to their children or themselves. When you hire someone to do your talking for you, you may be putting yourself, your future, and your children's lives in jeopardy. In family courts, judges have immunity and can wield an axe cutting through the connectivity of family. Why let a judge decide for you? Aren't you capable to decide for yourself? Don't your kids want to be a part of a decision that affects them? I would think so. Today we're going to look a little bit about the court, judges' accountability, and what happens to families when they go to court. And I have with me Gary Jacobs, President for Americans for Legal Reform. Hey, Gary.
Hey, Chris.
Here we go. Okay, so judges and their utility. I wonder about their utility sometimes, the function of a judge. They're not capable in terms of knowing your family. So they have to learn all over again. Is that why there's so many court appearances? Because they're trying to learn the hard way?
I don't know if it's a matter of learning or, my opinion is
what can we expect?
But there's so many court appearances because they want to make you go away. I remember somebody once said, if you want justice, stay out of the court system. Because there is no justice. We were brought up to believe that, but there is no justice there. Judges have their own agendas, and you and I know it, and you'll hear it when people are watching will go to an attorney, and they'll say, oh, I have Judge such and such. Oh, she's great for men. Yeah. I have Judge such and such. He's great for women. That should never be, because if it's the law,
sure,
you follow the law. And I think, I don't know if it was Judge Gorsuch when he was running just recently, and they said if you like Supreme Court, if you like every decision that you made, you're a bad judge, because sometimes you have to make decisions that you don't like because you're following the law. I would say
that's very true in family court, because the law is messed up.
I would say in Nassau and Suffolk County, most of the time, the judges don't follow the rules. We joke and they say they call it the Wild East, the family court out on Long Island, because it's a joke. The judges absolutely don't follow the rules. They're protected by a corrupt chief judge. I won't talk for Nassau.
To a degree,
I'll talk for Suffolk. Yeah. They have absolute immunity.
Right.
So absolute, power corrupts absolutely. Then you have a whole hierarchy of everybody protecting each other. Politicians protecting them because they run again and they get reelected, which is at Americans for Legal Reform. One of the things we like to try to do is tell people who the bad judges are. So hopefully they don't get reelected.
By the way, I find that next to impossible. Because there's 3 people that'll say that I had a good experience, and another 3 that said they have a lousy experience.
Well, of course, there's going to be 50% of the people who love the judge and 50% of the people who hate the judge.
Not just because you win or lose. Some people who have won said the judge wasn't particularly good either. But how does anybody really know?
I think that, they say they're good because they're abusive, which is another big issue when we talking about judges today. Is the judge's demeanor on the bench? I've heard many times, and I've been yelled at by judges, and I've heard probably more often than not,
it seems like their job.
Judges are disrespectful, that they just come out and you're a bastard, and they scream, and not only at the men, they scream at both people. And to me, that's disgusting. Don't scream because you may be victim. How would somebody feel if there's a rape victim sitting there and the judge started screaming, and you're responsible too, lady, because you wore a short skirt and you didn't wear underwear and you were in the wrong place we'd say, how can they do that? I hate one of the things that really, it's a pet peeve of mine, is when judges say, you know what, there's 2 sides to every story. Bullshit. If somebody kills somebody, is there 2 sides to that story?
Yeah, there's a victim and there's a perpetrator.
If a man rapes a woman, is there 2 sides to that story? No, the man raped the woman. And sometimes, guess what? Somebody's right and somebody's wrong.
There's a perceived bias that we have because we hear all these stories when they come out of court. But what I always wondered is, why is it that we have to decide how we feel about a judge who's deciding against us? Why? Who gives a shit? They don't give a shit.
Right.
The family is missing in this whole element. It's about how they're perceived by us and how we're perceived by them.
Well, let me tell you, if the judges followed the rules, it wouldn't matter if this judge hated men, if this judge hated women, if this judge hated blacks, hated Jews.
At least you could say, in other words, that you know the rules.
Well, let me tell you,
you can count on the rules.
Here's the way I look. You know what the rules are supposed to be, which we know is a bunch of crap? The best interest of the child.
Right.
Well, what is in the best interest of the child? Joint freaking custody.
Right.
I could show you tons of statistics about what happens when a girl is raised without a father, when a son is raised without a mother. We're perpetuating this generation of broken homes and one family household. So if the judge was truly to follow what our guidelines are, the best interest of the child, they would give joint custody in 90-something% of, and not this bullshit, oh, joint custody, but one person really has custody. I'm talking 50, as close to 50-50 as possible.
Yeah.
Guess what? It would be totally different. We shouldn't care. But we know which judges. You and I both know. We go into court. Oh, you're in trouble. You have Marion McNulty. Yeah, if you're a guy, you're screwed. Doesn't matter what you do. You're a guy. You're screwed in court. And there's some judges who are a little bit more favorable to men. I've been hearing of a few. Not many.
Yeah, not many.
But there is a bias, and that's because they don't get promoted if they are.
What we're doing when we go to court and you're in front of a judge is we're requesting judicial intervention. There's the RJI form that you fill out. So we're asking the judge to
Well,
make
one
a decision.
person is. Let's be clear. One person is.
Well, in from
the other person
from
being
the
wrapped
applicant,
in.
the other could be trapped in. I
They
know
may
that.
say, hey, I didn't want the judge getting him. You don't have no choice.
Okay, point well taken, and that's exactly what does happen. Sometimes you don't want to be there, but you're there because somebody requested judicial intervention.
Right.
But because this is occurring, and we're giving up our power, we're saying, here, I can't deal with this guy. Decide.
But in all fairness, I have had some judges out here. I believe it was Judge Poulos. I was in a case, and she gave her lecture at the beginning and said, we're going to be deciding on this case. I'm going to be deciding. Why do you want me deciding on your case? I'm going to meet you for a cumulative time of maybe 4 hours because I'm going to see you for 10
All
minutes,
under
20
duress.
times. You're both stressed out. You're in a false environment. I may never even hear you. The judge
We're
may
going
never
to
hear
put
you
you
speak.
in an intimidating environment on
Right.
top of it.
And the judge may never hear you speak because your lawyer may speak for you.
Right.
So why would you want me to make the choice? Why don't you guys try to work this out? And that's, it may sound self-serving for the judge, but it's true. It really, in reality, it's true. Why would you want a judge making the decision? Now, of course, one person always says, well, I want the judge to make the decision because I know I'm going to win.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah.
the other person says
Also, sometimes says the same thing.
well, the other person may think the same thing too. Hey, I'm going to win. I'm going to win too. I could tell
Either way.
everybody looking at you cannot predict. When you have McNulty, I would say yes, you could predict because she was 100% going to rule against the father. And there are statistics, but you still cannot. I've had women come to me literally, Chris, and know some of the ones we're talking about have said, "Hey, I'm going to go forward because guess what? I know mothers win all the time in Suffolk County." And guess what? They lost. They don't win all the mothers do win most of the time. They don't win all the time.
But the situation's changing, which makes me worry about the perception being so powerful in the last maybe 30 years that now even the judges recognize, we got to occasionally give somebody.
Right, of course, because they
give a carrot over here once
Chris,
in a while.
that's exactly what as bad as the judge is, they will never rule 100% one way or the other
because it's obvious.
It's going to be so and listen, you don't know which one. Usually it's the one with the money who ends up losing custody, unfortunately. So I tell if you're a woman and you got money, you're screwed. You're gonna be treated like the guy.
That's right. That's right. Moneymakers are also fodder for the court.
Right.
So what do we do when we give the judge this supreme position over us and our family, and now he's in charge of everything that we should have been in charge of? In the communication loss that the couple experiences, we're now giving that up too. So you're giving up your power, and you're giving this guy in a supreme position, this woman, judge, whoever it might be, the superior position. How does that advantage the kids who are somehow missing from all of that entangled?
Of course, it doesn't help. It doesn't help at all. But I guess it's sort of it's a catch-22 because you and I always tell people don't agree to a stipulation in court.
Right.
So we're saying, don't go to the judge, but don't stipulate. So I'm saying, stay out of court. Don't do it if you can.
If you're talking right now to the person that wants to make the RJI, the request for the judicial intervention.
Once you make that RJI.
But what about the person who is the reluctant other person? What can he do, or they do, she do?
Well, before the RJI is filed,
Yeah.
I say don't file. It sounds good.
See a mediator sounds like a good thing to me.
It sounds good. I'm going to go file. Do not give the judge that power because believe me, I promise people, I've seen people who filed the RJI. Go, I'm going to win. I'm going to win. All of a sudden, they get a forensic evaluation. A psychologist doesn't come out so good. Mm-hmm. Believe me, they wish they never signed the RJI because now, as you said, you just gave that power over to. You cannot take it back because now what happens? The other party goes, now I see I'm going to win. I'm not going to take it back. So don't give it up to be. You can always go to court. If the mediation doesn't,
that should be your last resort.
Right. The mediation doesn't work, and of course, it's our culture is that hey, go to court, but You know, if anybody gets
I know a good attorney is the last thing you want to hear somebody say.
Exactly. And every attorney, listen, I could tell everybody watching, you're going to go to the attorney. Yeah, I mean, we don't have to. You know, I know the judge. I've been to dinners. I've been to parties. I know this judge very well.
We've seen people.
They're the best salesmen out there. The lawyers.
See people who have relatives and friends who are judges and lawyers, and they go to the friend who's a lawyer. Don't worry about it. I'm taking care of. I got a good friend, and he can't do anything for you.
You never
sometimes.
know. I mean,
so you just
sometimes,
can't know.
listen. Of course, you could have a connection, but the judges can change. You know, too many things can happen.
Yeah, regarding change, what happens when either the facts are either undeniable or the facts are eliminated? I mean, sometimes it seems that a judge is ruling based on either a fact pattern that exists and is real, or just perceptions of where
the judges. To me, the judges here on Long Island, they don't follow the facts whatsoever. They get their own personal agenda. They may come in, they don't like the way you look that day. They, you know, first of all, you have to remember, they don't get to know you because you don't talk. You have an attorney.
Right, yeah.
So a lot of it is, believe it or not, the attorney, that they like that attorney and how they make you appear. I mean, listen, it's the trick. The old trick is that they make you be the victim. Then when you go in, they tell the woman and they tell the man, look, you got to be the victim. You know, you got cheated on. You're the poor woman who got cheated on. You're the guy. You're the poor woman whose wife was a slut and went out and cheated on you. You know, so. You know, you're the guy who was always working, so you're the victim mother who stayed home and took care of the. You know, it's always try to make the victim, because it's all a perception of how the judges emotionally feels about you, and then they can make the verdict go into. But these you don't get to the verdict because they tell you in advance, here's what we're going to do if your client doesn't settle, and you know, listen, I've sat in enough cases with you, and we know who the judge likes and who the judge doesn't like.
What happens when there's I guess you can say, an obvious error in the facts, and you've decided you've lost your decision in the court? It didn't go your way, but the fact pattern was missing. Is there any redress financially or? I know the appeal process. Let's give them the
Well,
full,
the appeals process is a joke, but let's be honest.
the
Everyone
full
says
length
this
and
is
breadth
appeal.
of the redress. What does that
They
look
say
like?
everything's appealable. That's what the lawyers will always tell you, because they don't want you freaking out if they lose. So they go, don't worry, if we lose, we're going to appeal it. Well, there's a couple things.
And what's the percentage in the appeals?
Well, first there's a couple things. First of all,
right.
the appeal costs a freaking fortune. You're not going to do an appeal with less than $15,000.
Perfecting his appeal is not possible for an imperfect person, and we're mostly imperfect.
Right. I mean, listen, you can find mistakes in everything, and I would say out of the cases that I've seen that are appealed, probably 90% of them should be overturned on appeal. The reality is over 85% are denied. The ones that they win the appeal here in our, what is it, the second district?
Second department, yeah.
Second department. The ones that do win, many times, all it is, okay, go back to court. I'm reversing the judge's decision. Well, that doesn't mean you now win. You go back for a retrial, so now the judge could screw you and be a little bit more careful.
There's more money to be made.
So it's a very bad.
Why is it important to hear that part? Why is it important for us to let the audience know?
Well, I'm just don't fall.
If you're not out of money and you caught the appeal process, or you went to your appeal process and you still have assets, why is it important?
Well, listen. First of all, your assets are going to be. If a lawyer doesn't suck you dry of your assets, he didn't do a good. He's not a good lawyer. You see these big law offices that are big fancy buildings, you know, with 4 lawyers making $200,000-$300,000 a year. You look in the parking lot, you know, you're not seeing Toyota Camrys in the parking lot. They all have Mercedes and BMWs. That's off the backs of other people. And listen, of course, I'm talking in generalities because we all know there are some lawyers who are very good. There are some that, you know, work out of their house in small offices and don't. But you know, these divorce mills,
honest and lawyers
that have rent
doesn't work too well
now,
together.
there are some good ones, and we've met some, but you know, there's very few, honestly. Because
sadly, that's a sad testimony to the profession.
Here's
right
the
there.
thing: if you're a good lawyer,
very few good lawyers.
If you are a good lawyer, you're a poor lawyer, because if you're a good lawyer, you're going to settle the case right away. You don't make any money.
You're effective for yourself.
Right. So what's a good lawyer? These fancy lawyers who drive Lamborghinis and have. Well, is that a good lawyer? No, he sucks everybody out of their money. He may be very good in court,
Bad results.
So what makes it good? You know.
Yeah, that's a subject for another day, isn't it?
I mean, but we're talking about judicial accountability, and I think.
Well, that's what I was referring to before. I didn't want to miss this point about them people going in to expect that you're going to get some justice here, and the redress part is the only thing. If it's the only thing you have and you don't have very much opportunities, you say the appeal process is not going to go well for you. Redressing a trial is going to cost you more money.
People file complaints
What
to
else
the
can
Judicial
there be?
Review Board, which is another joke. You know, we went to the hearings in the city, and people came forward and testified that most of them don't even get read by the the
appeals.
grievance committee, they're thrown in the garbage and rejected with a form letter. I mean, I had a case where I put in, a judge said something on the record that she's going to determine what my transcripts say, because I was complaining that they weren't accurate, and the judge said, they will say what I say they will say. You can't say that.
Yeah.
and it got turned down. But I think, as far as judicial accountability, the problem is, common sense would be, the judge should have some responsibility. The litigant who's going into divorce court doesn't know. And I'll give you a perfect example. We're helping somebody, Americans for Legal Reform. And the person signed a divorce agreement that basically he's paying 100% of college for his 4 kids and approximately 80% of his, or 85% of his income. Now, why would a judge sign that? I mean,
Yeah,
they
really.
know you can't afford to do this.
That's
But the
a-
judge
that's-
says, you know what? Hey, he had a lawyer. Boom, stamp, done, court order. Now we.
So somehow the lawyer knows that he has additional money, that the litigant had more money than he agreed to.
I don't think it's. I think that some people just want to get out of the system, and then listen. People aren't thinking clearly.
panic.
When they're in divorce.
panic.
And everybody who's listen. Most of us have never been to court before. I had never been till divorce. I was scared going into a courtroom. Now I could care less. But back then I was
You know,
scared.
even today, I still get the heebie-jeebies going.
Oh, we
in there.
all listen.
Yeah.
You feel your heart start to go.
Yeah,
It's not a
what
comfortable
the
place.
heck? Yeah, it's not
and
a good place.
we lose track.
It's very intimidating.
I remember what it felt like though going in there, and I would always go early so I would get more comfortable. It's a
kinda
horrible.
like-
It's
yeah,
a
it's
horrible,
really-
horrible. So you're not thinking clear. How could you think your adrenaline is at a full, is 100%? Your
Memories
heart
are
rate's
shooting
going.
through your head.
Of course, nothing. You're not thinking clearly, and I think it's funny when the judge says, "Oh well, I allocated them. Are you under duress? Did any?" Who in that courtroom is? If you're not under duress, guess what? You should be committed to a psych ward, because if everybody going in that place is under freaking
Absolutely.
duress. You got a
Absolutely.
judge in a robe who could take away your kids, your life savings, is
That's
treating
a
you
crisis for you.
treating you like a piece of shit in the courtroom.
No respect whatsoever. Do you know of any judges who have suffered under, let's say, making a bad decision and someone came after the judge for money and won, or was he
No.
thrown off the bench?
No, what we can do is you can, no, because judges are elected here, and so what they do, listen, I personally put a lot of pressure on bad judges, and I think at this point, a judge knows if they're in my radar, I'm going to
So
go
how
after
did you
them.
get to be the judge?
So-
I know why, but just
So
just
the way
so-
I do, I mean, listen, what I do, if I get on a judge, I'm on him like a fly on shit. I'm videoing people doing, stories about them, and I'm talking about how they're corrupt and I'm biased and all these things. And then what I do is behind the scenes, personally, not as Americans for Legal Reform, Gary Jacobs as citizen and advocate.
Citizen Jacobs.
I'm very involved in politics, as you know, so I know a lot of politicians in both parties, and I go to them and I say, you're going to elect this judge again. She ran. Here's what she did. She's biased against men. She's biased against whatever it is. She's unfair. She's rude. And guess what? You're going to read about her in the news. You may want to think twice about whether or not you guys want to get behind this person 100%. And believe me, and you've seen it, it works. We've had so far I've had 3 directly involved in getting getting to step.
knocked
Because
off
what
the
they do
bench?
is they don't really knock them. People go, oh, they never fire them. It's not true. They get them to step down. Right? They get them to
They
step
put him
down.
in some other area of litigation, right?
Well, they get them to step down. If it's really bad, they just get them to leave the bench and say personal reasons I'm leaving. But that's fine. But we've directly been responsible for 3 judges leaving. Right?
And how about attorneys? That's
So,
good. That's a good start.
attorneys not really, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, but
Yeah.
that's pretty powerful that I've personally
Sure.
been involved, and you have too, just individually, in having 3 judges removed from the bench. That's pretty damn strong. And don't think for a second that they don't know when Gary Jacobs starts filming for Long Island Backstory, or Chris DiMaggio and Gary Jacobs and Carl Lancezero all show up with our Americans for Legal Reform buttons, that's the end of it. They know that when we're on them, and listen, we're very
We're
careful.
going to do a segment later and talk about that subject.
I-
Because
I'm
when
very
you see
careful.
somebody who's done a good job, do you have an opportunity to write them or do anything?
I don't. You know
think
why?
that's
Because I'm afraid that it's going to hurt them. I've been asked before.
Really?
I know a couple of good judges right now.
You mean because you're signing for
And I think
ALR?
if I say, well, first of all, as ALR, we can't endorse candidates, so we really don't say, hey, vote for this judge, don't vote.
No,
we don't
have to
pick,
do the political end. You
Right,
can
we don't do
it-
the political end, but we do go and say, hey, what do you know about this judge? Give us information
What's
on this.
happened
But
and
I'm always afraid, and we just talked about this because I have a judge that I think is doing a very good job, and I've said, should I say something good about her on your show? The last time it came up, and I said, you know what, I better not, because I think that's going to hurt the judge if I say, hey, this judge is actually being fair. They don't want this here, Chris. You have to remember, Suffolk County is run by Randall Hendricks as the chief judge.
If we
He
can
himself
say
is
almost
corrupt.
anything else, but if we can say everything else, why we wouldn't say, hey, listen, we complain about a lot of judges. Hey, look at this. You get somebody who's really doing a decent job. Why shouldn't we say
Because
something?
I don't think they're going to like that. My opinion is that they're going to think that.
What about John Q. Public signs a letter and says that we
Well,
witnessed to something like
you know,
that?
they
Not
could.
as a member of anything
I don't know
else.
if it's going to help it. Listen, what do they want? They want judges who are going to suck the blood out of people. They don't want judges who are going to get cases done with. That's not how the county makes their money, which is a whole other subject.
Yeah.
But the county does make money
we should
on
say it
Title
because it's
4D.
important.
Well, it's a confusing number. But
Yeah.
basically, for every every $4 they collect $6 from the federal government if they collect in child support. It's the best money if you can make something become arrears.
Isn't that Title
and then
IX?
Title 4D money.
Title 4D, okay.
Right. If you could turn
Title
it,
IX is the women in sports.
if
I'm
you
sorry,
could turn
yeah.
it into arrears, then they get even more money. So there's a big incentive, and nobody talks about it. It's the elephant in the room. That nobody,
Right,
but they all know about it. You know, who feeds all the jails? You know, hey, these courts is great. Send them in. Keep filling up the jails. A lot of big unions involved in this. Keep giving orders of protection. It's great. The sheriffs can spend their whole day going out serving orders of protection all day.
You know, I believe it's a mistake to bring a family matter into court to begin with, and this is what Sandra Day O'Connor, former Supreme Court Justice, said: only use courts when the alternative types of resolve have failed. That's a paraphrase, the actual quote I use in my email, because I think it's very important. I think when you walk into ask a stranger to decide how things are going in your family, you're not thinking clearly.
Right. But I wanted the people
You're
watching.
putting your
listen,
whole family in jeopardy.
We're watching, you know, people watching the show thinking, all right, these guys, clearly they don't like the judges here and they think the system sucks. I mean, you don't have to
Yeah.
be a genius to see that the two of us don't like the system. But what I'd like the people to get out of it who are watching it is, do not think that you have a slam dunk case. And I've sat there with
That's
people
right.
who sitting in the hallway, and I just did it this year actually, and the guy says to me, I said, oh, listen, you got to be careful because, you know, this may not go this way. He goes, Gary, I got a slam dunk case. I said, now you're really screwed
Yeah.
because there is no such thing as a slam. He goes, no, seriously, I got my wife on video, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I waited there. I goes, there another case? And he came out and I said, yeah, how'd it go, Darren? He says, oh my God, it went horrible. You can, I
Yeah.
promise
Yeah.
you,
Don't be so
you
sure
cannot-
is the message.
you
Don't be so
cannot
sure.
predict that it's going to go your way. Everybody has their own agenda, and they get to act on it here. Criminal court's a little bit different,
Yeah.
because they really do follow the rules a little
Sure,
bit
you
more.
also have a
because-
jury. By the way, have we ever gotten anywhere with that?
No, I mean,
We
to
should.
me, listen, I think I don't have the money to fight it, but I think how do you put somebody in jail? Our Constitution is set up
we
for
should
a
have a
jury.
jury for
yeah,
everybody.
we let one judge, and sometimes not even a judge, but because I don't think that matters. Who cares? It's a person.
Yeah.
We let one person put somebody in jail for 6 months. Now they can put them in jail for 3 consecutive 6 months.
Well, that's-
so now somebody could put you in jail for.
That's the chair of the judiciary.
But I'll just,
Oh
you know,
my
I don't have
God.
much time here, but
Yeah.
one thing I want to get in.
Yeah, 'cause-
Nobody should go to jail for a divorce.
Right.
Just common frickin' sense.
Sit
and
down
I had a
and
judge
work out your money situation.
who's
that's
who's
all.
still on the bench but doesn't do matrimonials. Who I went on a case and the judge walked out as a contempt motion, and the woman was trying to put the husband in jail for 6 months, and the judge said right out of the box, "I'm just telling you right now, I do not put people in jail because of a divorce. I don't do it. I don't care if he's
See,
right.
now that judge should be
I don't
commended.
care what happened. I do not put people in jail." Think about it. Isn't this common
No,
sense?
but this is not, now there's a
It
judge you should
be.
really write a
That's-
letter to.
right, that judge, of
We
course.
finally found
Yeah,
one.
Interestingly, that judge they took out of the mat part.
was too good. He was too good for
exactly.
everybody.
Well, listen, if nobody put people in jail and the jails were empty, it would be sucked for the
Is
county, right?
it, what do
How
they
many
call that?
they'd have- they'd-
Controlled obsolescence? Is
they'd
that
have
what they
to-
call?
What would happen if all these jails weren't filled? They might have to close them. That would be horrible.
Yeah, that would be horrible, right? We should do that. I'm sorry. But one other way you can consider to handle your situation rather than bring it up or leave it up to a judge is to go to a mediator, because in a mediation you can solve all your issues without having to contend. Once you get a base comparative where you're having a conversation that allows you to settle and resolve issues, then you can take that if you felt like it, if you really insist, and then you can go to court and battle it out. The judge will probably even say, look, you got all this stuff agreed to. What the hell are you fighting for?
And you could do part of the stuff in
And we could get people who are fighting in court, by the way, out and resolve their issues as
Oh,
a
yeah,
mediator
yeah.
too. It's
Believe
not
me,
just, it's not a one-way street. You get them before you go in. However, it does happen that way a lot.
Yeah.
Once they go to court, they want to fight, and if they think they're losing or winning just a little bit, they get back
Well,
in there a little
the
bit more.
problem is when they're in court, one person always gets the feeling that they're losing.
Yeah.
And I tell people, look, they go, well, I could always pull it out. No, you can't, because let me tell you what happens.
Yeah.
Let's say you get a forensic and it's
Not
bad
so
against
easy.
now it's bad, and let's say it's bad against the mother. So the father goes, "Oh shit, I got a slam dunk. Now really got a slam dunk." The father's not going to want to go to mediation anymore.
Yeah.
You have to go when the slate is clean.
Right.
And
It's
you can always
certainly the best way to do
you
it.
can always go to court, but you really and listen. I'm guilty. I did not go to mediation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I went to court. It was a mistake.
Right.
It really was.
And we all do that too.
I could
mean,
have.
a lot of us
My
do
case
that.
probably would have ended up there anyway.
Yeah.
But at least if I would have tried.
I should have tried a little harder. I was in mediation school when I got divorced.
Mm.
Can you imagine that? Thank you very much, Gary Jacobs. Societal and political trends are rapidly breaking down the family that once was the cornerstone of our great American culture. At FIT, we know you cannot get this information on your own, so we'll bring it to your TV every single week, whether you like it or not. We invite all opposing views. My name is Chris DiMaggio. Thank you for watching FIT TV.